What we know about the Atlanta shooting rampage. Your stimulus check could be sitting in your bank account as we speak. And the first dog banished from the White House no more. Thursday Need to Know, let's go. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need to Know podcast for Thursday, March 18th. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Carlo, good morning.
Another day, another dollar, Jill. Do people still say that? You know, somebody wrote in yesterday and complained about my turns of phrase because because they said that eating crow. And I said something yesterday.
Pennywise,
and pound foolish. That these were all dated references. Is that true? First of all, even if it is, I don't care. That's how I talk. So, love it or leave it.
I did notice that you did use two of them yesterday, but I like it, and I talk that way too. And the way I look at it is that these expressions sort of kind of exist for a reason, and sometimes they perfectly encapsulate what you're trying to say. But yeah, I guess maybe they could be a little dated.
Whatever. I'm not trying to be hip. I know who I am. I'm a 37-year-old guy, and that's how I talk.
I totally get it. You're comfortable in your own skin, and I appreciate it. All right, let's get to some news this morning. Police have charged 21-year-old Robert Aaron Long with 8 counts of murder in connection with that string of shootings that left 8 people dead in Atlanta, including 7 women, 6 of whom were of Asian descent. Long, who is white, admitted to carrying out the attacks, telling police that he had a sexual addiction. He denied that he was driven by bigotry, although investigators are still not ruling out hate as a motive here. Long's parents actually helped police track his car, and he told police when he was captured that he was on his way to Florida to carry out more attacks on, quote, some type of porn industry.
Did you get a chance to watch this police press conference yesterday? You may have been on air when it happened.
I've just heard sound bites from it.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of police pressers in my day. This was a really weird one. The cops basically saying that the shooter, quote, had a bad day and that the shootings were a result of that he was trying to, quote, erase temptation in his life. It was just very strange how they were sort of describing this mass shooting in his terms, I thought. I don't know. But, whatever the motive ends up being, it doesn't change the fact that this is really adding to this real climate of fear among just in our Asian communities in this country. And that needs to be acknowledged. And it is, by the way. I mean, both the president and the vice president, by the way, the first Asian American to hold that office, they both came out yesterday separately and condemned this and acknowledged this climate of fear. And I think that most people understand that our Asian American brothers and sisters are feeling very anxious and they're feeling very upset right now. And we got to do what we can to just stand in solidarity with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to separate race from this story. And it is possible, by the way, that this is both a story of racism against the Asian community and misogyny, right? Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. These were Asian massage parlors. And as Atlanta's mayor said, they are legally run businesses. There's no indication that they were involved with any type of sex work. The mayor saying they were not on the city's radar at all. And by the way, also a story equally important, and I know you're going to talk about it, about these lax gun laws that we have.
Yeah. I mean, Jill, that to me is, I'm not trying to I don't want to minimize the race and misogyny aspect to this, but this is a gun control story, right? This guy bought a 9mm handgun the day of the shooting. No waiting period, no cooling off period to buy a firearm in Georgia. By the way, if you're a woman in Georgia and you need an abortion, you have to wait 24 hours. But yet this was a mass shooting, and we've sort of forgotten about mass shootings because we haven't really had that many in the last year since schools and businesses and offices have all been closed. It's probably one of the sad silver linings of the pandemic, right? But imagine if this a-hole had to wait even a day to buy a gun, right? Maybe he would have changed his mind after he slept off his bad day. Or maybe he would have walked into the ocean and saved us all, having to think about him at all. Maybe we should make it even slightly more difficult for psychopaths in America to get guns. By the way, the House passed a background check bill last month. That has majority public support, even among gun owners, and it will die in the Senate because of the filibuster.
It's hard to rationalize it. It's like these are the most common sense, basic things to just protect people. And it's incredible that we can't get it done. Massachusetts, meanwhile, just switching gears to talk about COVID, the latest state to announce a plan to open up vaccine eligibility. All state residents 16 and up will be able to get their shots on April 19th, and it cannot come soon enough. The overall national trend lines still going in roughly the right direction, but the Northeast specifically is showing some worrisome signs. New cases per capita double the national average in New York and New Jersey. Cases in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Connecticut are either plateauing or ticking up. Roughly half of the new cases in New York City are caused by two of the new more contagious variants, and the city's positivity rate has not fallen below 6% in months.
A little bit scary. Not gonna lie. The trend line in Michigan also not great. It's basically all of the places that got hit really hard early on, like this time last year. They're worth keeping an eye on, and I think that may have something to do with lowered antibodies in the population. Also, just these variants, right? This really is a race against time with these vaccines. I did want to mention Europe again today. The EU has proposed a travel certificate that's going to let residents travel freely within the European Union if they can show either proof of vaccination, proof that they've recovered from the virus, or a negative test. So the idea here is to sort of try and salvage whatever can be salvaged of the coming summer tourism season, which is fast approaching. And, it's sort of a sealed fate, I think, is the continent now really fully in the grip of a third wave. Just as an example, my fully vaccinated parents were sort of planning a celebratory trip to Italy this spring. That's obviously not going to happen now. Maybe it'll happen later this year. But, 2 summers in a row of no tourism in Europe, that's a disaster. That's truly an economic disaster.
Okay, heads up now if you're in the southeast or the mid-Atlantic. There's an ongoing threat of severe weather pushing into the southeast today. Eastern Georgia into the central Carolinas and up to Virginia have the highest threat of severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, hail, and damaging winds. Nearly 24 twisters were confirmed in Mississippi and Alabama from the system yesterday, although no widespread damage or fatalities have been reported as of yet.
This is we're now in tornado season, so everyone got to keep their vigilance up. Meteorologists, by the way, particularly concerned about this spring tornado season because there's this La Nina weather pattern in the country right now with the jet stream that's almost identical to the one that we saw back in 2011. And I don't know if you remember, that was the year that we had one of our deadliest tornado seasons ever. This was the year of the Tuscaloosa tornado, that gigantic E5 tornado in Joplin, Missouri that killed 160 people. That was 2011. That, by the way, still the costliest tornado in American history. So let's just hope, we had a bad hurricane season. The last thing people need right now is tornadoes. Let's just hope that we can sort of skate through this spring.
Tornadoes are so incredibly frightening, particularly
Truly.
when they hit at night, because there's
Truly.
just very little warning.
The scariest of the weather phenomenon, I think, right? I don't know what else would even
I
come
think
close.
so. I don't know if we've ever. I covered tornadoes when I was a reporter in Michigan.
Yeah.
And I remember being in a news van with my photographer, and it was at night, and we were hearing the tornado sirens go off, and we were like, "What?" I was a reporter at this point for maybe 3 months or 4 months, and we're like, "What do we even do?" And we actually had to. We ran, and I called my boss. I remember, and I'm like, what do we, the sirens are going off, what do we do? And he's like, get cover, like, what do you mean? Try to go inside somewhere. So we ran and we knocked on someone's door and we wound up in someone's basement until everything cleared. And thank God everyone was okay. It was just crazy, so scary.
It really is, but it's remarkable. People who live in, like, we don't really deal with this because tornadoes don't really come up here that often, but people who live in, Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, these places, it's incredible how good they are at just being aware, knowing where to go. There were these pictures yesterday out of the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. All the kids were in these storm shelters. That's obviously probably a COVID problem now, but it was just people really know. I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? But people are really good at knowing the risk.
All right, switching gears, go check your bank account. The IRS just deposited 90 million stimulus checks worth about $240 billion via direct deposit to eligible Americans. If your bank info is not on file with the IRS, just be on the lookout for a check or a debit card coming in the mail. And do not assume that the payment will arrive in the same form as the last one you got. There's also this nifty tool at irs.gov that will track your payment, and we've linked to that in our Need to Know newsletter today.
It's a very important point you just made. Last time when I got a stimulus, whenever that was last year, I got it. Remember this? Do we remember talking about this? I got it as this debit card that looked so much like a piece of junk mail that I actually threw it out before I went back, and I was like, wait, let me just double check this for a second. It was a debit card that came from something called MetaBank. And it directed you to EIPpayment.com, economicimpactpayment.com. But I didn't know what that was. So I was like, this just looks like every other piece of junk crap that I get in the mail, right? So it just be on the lookout for that. Also, this year's tax filing deadline, the IRS just pushed that back a month. So you have until May 17th now to pay your taxes. And also, just another important point, if your income is different between 2020 and 2019, but you haven't filed your 2020 taxes yet, they're making these payments through September. So you can still file, and you can make a claim on next year, 2021 taxes, if you did not receive a payment this year that you believe that you were entitled to.
Oh my gosh, I remember last year when you got the stimulus or whatever you got, and you're like, I almost threw it out. I once got a credit card for my dog. It had my dog's name on it. And that's when I'm like, okay, this is out of control at this point. That somehow Trestle qualified.
Right.
I didn't realize that when I went to work, he also had a job and was collecting some income and could pay off his bills.
He's just there on the computer while you're working. It's amazing. We talked about how I got that Bye Bye Baby coupon the other day. The credit card industry, that's the real scary one, right? I mean, I probably get 5 or 6 credit card offers a week. I don't need any more. I don't need any credit cards. Like, leave me alone.
Some signs of life in the Golden State. Disney planning to reopen its 2 California theme parks, Disneyland and California Adventure, on April 30th, with, of course, COVID restrictions in place. Most of Disney's other parks have been operating in some capacity, but the 2 big California attractions have been closed for a year now.
Among the new protocols that are going to be in place, efforts to reduce screaming on roller coasters. It's funny, but it's actually being reported as a ban on screaming, which is a little bit of a misreading of the guidelines that were put out by the state, which read that face covering usage and/or modifications to seat loading patterns will be required on amusement park rides to mitigate the effects of shouting. So basically, they're just going to tell you to wear a mask when you're on whatever that is, like Splash Mountain, Space Mountain.
They're like, listen, you scaredy cat, stop screaming, it's spreading your germs. 4 years after director Zack Snyder had to leave the helm of the DC Cinematic Universe to tend to a family tragedy, the original vision that he had is finally being made public. The famed Snyder Cut of Justice League dropped overnight on HBO Max, all 4 hours and 2 minutes of it. The extended cut is getting pretty good reviews, saying that it should live up to the expectations of the fans that essentially willed it into existence.
So if you're ready for that 4 hours, I don't know who has that kind of time right now.
Who doesn't? What do you mean?
Yeah, I guess. I guess. There's actually people online who are in the process of watching it right now because it dropped at 3 a.m. So they're like halfway through it right now, I guess a little more. But just be forewarned, the movie was shot with an IMAX presentation in mind. So there's going to be these big black bars on either side of the picture, which you probably haven't seen in a while since we all have like widescreen TVs now. But Zack Snyder has come out and said it's meant to be viewed that way. So it may look a little screwy, especially if you're not used to that old school way of watching movies, but how it was meant to be.
All right, Carlo, let's talk a little basketball. The first 4 round of the NCAA men's college basketball tournament starts today. Up first, Texas Southern versus Mount St. Mary's. Tip-offs at 5:10 p.m. Eastern Time. The games are airing on CBS and True TV, or they're streaming on CBSSports.com. If you have not filled out a bracket yet, this is your last chance.
Did you do one this year?
I didn't, because I feel like we did it in the office. We used to do it in the office, and did we have a Cheddar one that I don't recall a Cheddar one being sent out.
I know it's a very like office thing to do, and it's like one of those things that it's like one of those office culture things that like we no longer have. I didn't even do one this year. Anyway. I think the big game. I don't, I'm not that big on college basketball, but 12 seed UCSB Santa Barbara versus 5 seed Creighton on Saturday. I think that's the game to watch because for whatever reason, 12 seeds have this history of upsetting 5 seeds. So
really?
We'll see if that continues. By the way, I have no idea where Creighton is. So, hold on.
That's interesting.
Creighton is in. Where is Creighton?
Look, it's the Cinderella stories that make the tournament so fun, right?
And Gonzaga is the hot team to watch. I think that Gonzaga has now been in the tournament for the last every year for the last 25 years, which is remarkable for such a small sort of like, not one of these, not like a Duke or a UNC, right? It's incredible.
Duke again not in the tournament this year, nor is Kentucky. So those are
Kentucky out.
Yeah,
right.
Those are 2 schools that usually.
Maybe we'll get someone new.
Michigan, go blue.
All right.
One of our stars though is still out injured, which does not bode well for us. Okay, and finally, to continue our streak of ending on dog-related news, President Biden's dog Major. Guess what? He's going to be returning to the White House after that biting incident that left a staffer with a minor hand injury. The president said in an interview that aired on Good Morning America that his 3-year-old rescue dog is undergoing training in Delaware and had not been permanently banished. He said 85% of the people there love him.
Who are the other 15%, right? Isn't that kind of a weird thing to say? I watched him say that, and I was like, I feel like Biden could be really funny, maybe even Trump level funny, if they just let him rip, right? But they keep him on such a tight leash. He said something else yesterday, sort of off the cuff. It was sort of like Trump-esque. He was talking about St. Patrick's Day, and he was talking about his Irish grandma making rice pudding, and he was like, "No offense to the Greeks, but she had, my grandma Gertie had the best rice pudding." And I was like, let this guy out more, man.
He already won, right? Like, he won the election. He's in office. He's probably not going to run again. Just let him go. I totally agree with you. Okay, and he'd give us a little bit more. It certainly would make for a more fun political coverage.
Yeah, I mean, we need it.
All right, everyone. That's what we need to know for Thursday, March 18th. But like, please do not still be Wednesday. I'm over it.
This week is taking forever. All right, guys. See you tomorrow.